Welcome to the Finding Peace Within podcast with your host, Miss Lisa L. Dalton. The Finding Peace Within podcast was created to help you find your authentic self through spiritual awareness. And you do it by studying the Word of God and doing the necessary things you need to do to find your peace within. Now, get your pens and pads as we take this journey to finding peace within together.
Hello, everyone. Once again, welcome to the Finding Peace Within podcast. You already know I'm your host, Miss Lisa L. Dalton. Look, I have a treat for y'all today. I got my pastor. Yes, my pastor, Pastor Demetrius K. We got to find out what that K means. We got Demetrius K. Samu-el in the house today. Actually, I am in his house, in his office here at the historic Sherman Memorial Church of God in Christ, 1401 Parkwood Avenue. The pastor is the new author. Okay, let me take this down. Past the Pulpit, our pastor has his first book, The Ultimate Test of Ministry. D.K. Samu-el Sr. We're going to talk to Pastor Samuel today about this wonderful book. You see, I've got all my little tabs here. We're ready to talk and ask some deep questions. I want you to get your pens and pads as we take this journey to finding peace within together. And we're going to find out how Pastor Samuel found his peace while writing this book. Let's go.
How I had forgotten about that.
How mad were you? How mad were y'all?
You know, I wasn't. I never,
were you mad or were you just
somebody
disappointed?
Asked me, I think it was different for us. For us, we were in different situations because she would ask me, how can you be so cool about stuff and not get bent out of shape? I was not angry with God, personally. My thing, I turned to introspection. I mean, where did I come up short? What did I miss? What didn't I do right? It was all on me. Not even looking at her. I think her situation, I don't want to speak for her, and we have talked about this over the years. It was a different situation. Can I say you were angry with God? You wasn't, okay. Then I won't say you were angry with God. It was introspection. And she wasn't angry with God. She was angry with somebody because she gave me the business. She
could have been angry with herself.
That very well could be angry with yourself. Wow. But I knew we had different approaches. I decided, and because of that push, I was intentional of being sweeter, gentler, kinder, more affectionate. That's just me. I wanted to make sure she was taken care of and felt good about it. This is not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Stuff happens. And so that was my attitude on that, because I didn't want her to be bitter or resentful. And if there was anything that I could do to prevent that, then that was my goal.
And then we get pregnant again.
And
they say, don't say anything about it.
That's what first everybody told us. Don't say nothing. Get past the first trimester before you start telling people.
Did you know there were problems?
Well, the doctors told us.
With Junior?
Well, not until, she had preeclampsia, and then it progressed to full eclampsia. And so that was probably the beginning of that. We went for a doctor visit, and the doctor said, we're going to have to deliver this baby today. And it was like everything was happening. So, and took us, we left from the doctor's office to the hospital, get there, and they got the room ready and stuff, and her blood pressure is steadily going up. I mean, her blood pressure was so high, she was flushing red. Her skin was hot to the touch. When we got there, I'm getting ready with my scrubs and stuff. And before I could get dressed, they said, we got to do this. By the time I got halfway dressed, they were running by the room with Junior in the little cart they were carrying away in. And the doctor yells in, the medical staff, they're all together, if I want to see him before he goes to the NICU, they come out now. And look, I'm halfway dressed and my scrubs and stuff come out, and I see the little baby in there. And no sound coming out, just looked like he's crying. He was fighting then. But let me back up. Before going in, the doctor had sent paperwork for me because she told us I'm not going to be able to save both. You need to make a decision. This is 50-50.
Because you didn't write that in the book.
Do you want to save? And there's a lot of things I left out. There's kind of sensitive stuff.
I get it. But you can tell us
okay with
now.
me talking, man?
That's a testimony, child. He was 20 what now?
He's 23.
23?
But she said, you have a 50-50 chance. It's about, she said, do you want us to save your wife or this unborn child? And they brought me the paperwork, and I'm looking at the paperwork, getting dressed, then doing the paperwork, and I'm like, I don't want to make this decision. Who do I say? I was like,
save them both.
Yeah, and they told me that it wouldn't be possible to save both. But God intervened in that moment. Like I said, they come running by with Junior. So I'm thinking, the baby's alive. You saved the baby.
Where's my
wife?
Right.
I believe my mother-in-law was there, and somebody else, we were in the room. And she looked at me because she knew what the doctor said before.
So this is C-section.
You see the baby? A C-section. 2-pound baby. I held him in the palm of my hand.
Oh my God.
The nurse in the NICU, she told me, she said, let me show you something. She said, let me have your wedding band. And so she took my wedding band and she put it over his foot on his leg. And his leg was smaller than my finger. It was dangling. I wish I could find the photograph, but we took pictures that day with my wedding band on his ankle. But now when I look at this boy looking at me, eye to eye, he wasn't supposed to be here. He's been fighting to be here since day one. He was delivered at 27 or 29. 27 weeks premature. So you see I have my wife and my son. I didn't have to sign the papers.
You didn't have to sign the papers. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
Yes,
now
yes,
you wrote these 4 days.
And I'm going to tell you, those 4 dates, that was added in. I was sitting at my desk, and I have some bins. I had stacked up some bins that we moved to the house. I hadn't gone through everything, but I knew what was in there. It's a box of journals.
40 of them.
76.
76, that's right, 76 of them. Oh my God, since college.
Since I could write.
Yeah.
Just elementary school and before. I started, my grandmother started teaching me how to write in kindergarten. And I'm looking at my handwriting. It's changed over the years. But I started journaling probably before first grade. She was teaching me how to write. So I got the little skills where she would do my letters and dots. And I was writing cursive by the time
just smart, huh? Oh, whatever.
No, just practicing. Lots of practice. You can try.
Perfect practice makes perfect. I think that's what Great Daddy said. Perfect practice makes perfect.
Practice it right.
June 10, May 25th, July 18th, and March the 31st. Now, you said this was revealed in a dream. I was standing in the middle of the street of an old neighborhood I'd grown up in near Buffalo, New York. It was daylight and the sky was clear. As I looked up, an angel appeared and told me there were 4 dates that I should remember. They were June 10, May 25, July 18, and March 31. The journal entry was dated 10/28/1992 at 6:42 a.m. Since that time, all these dates have resurfaced in many ways, but prominent and significant. Both prominent and significant. Let's talk about the dates. June 10 was the date Junior was supposed to come.
That was his due date.
That was his due date.
He was born on April 1st. But June 10th was his due date. June 10th, they kept him in the hospital until his due date. He wasn't fully developed.
2 pounds and no ounces.
2 pounds, 0 ounces. By June 10th, he was ready to be released. So from April 1st to June 10th, we were at the hospital every day.
So April 1st to June 10th.
Yes. June 10th.
And Junior wasn't here before then, right?
He was born April.
He wasn't when the dream that was.
No, that dream was in 1992.
Oh, that's right.
That's the thing.
Moment.
I'm telling you, I sat at my desk looking at this journal. I said, I've got to put this in here. I've got to incorporate it some way. But I'm like, I can't believe this.
Had you forgotten about this?
I had forgotten about it until I ran across the journal. And I said, I'm such a creature of habit. So in these journal entries, I have the date and time, and some places even the day of the week. But I'll put the time, and I'm like laughing at myself because Dr. Hobbs always says, man, he said, writing everything down is going to be the death of you.
My brother said that because I journal too. And he's like, Lisa, stop writing. And I
write down.
still.
And so I've got journals. I've got 2 right there. But just writing down things and my daily activities and things. And so this was one of those times that I had written down. My grandmother told me, when you have unusual dreams and stuff, she said, write it down. Don't trust your mind to remember. Yeah. And so those are the kind of details. And I'm looking in this journal. It's a red composition notebook that I started the day that I started at St. Bonaventure University. So that day I journaled my whole day and all that. But this entry was in October of that year, where I had written down this unusual dream. Because in the dream I saw it was daylight, the angels spoke to me. And so I just wrote that, and that's all I had there. And then I wrote out the dream in my journal. And who knew 2023 that those would come up again. I sat there, it was just like, this is an out-of-body experience. I wrote those dates down before my wife and I were married, before Junior was a thought, before all of this. My grandfather was in good health in 1992.
And your grandfather passed
on June 10th. That was the day that Junior was released from the hospital. When we went in, and I almost included that there, but I thought that would be too dark of a journey. But the day that, my grandparents, I'm the last person that spoke to both of them before they. But
and this is your grandfather.
It's my grandfather, my mom's father, the pastor, Elder Solomon, that I grew up under. He passed on June 10th. We had come home. I won't forget it. We had just come home, put Junior in the crib, and I had left the light on, and he made noise and stuff. I'm saying he wasn't satisfied till he was in the dark. I'm like, this little baby like to sleep in the dark. Anyway, as I'm leaving out his room, the phone rang. Answered the phone. It was my aunt. She's calling to see when are you coming. She said, everybody's here but you. I said, what do you mean everybody's here with me? She said, all of the siblings are here. I said, I'm not a sibling, I'm a grandchild. She said, well, whatever, she said, we're looking when she said, when can you get here? And I said to her, I told her, I said, I don't know. And she said to me, well, it seems like Daddy's waiting on you. So when you let me know which one she would make flight arrangements and stuff for me. And I said to her, if he's waiting on me, the longer I take to get there, the longer he'll be with us. And oh my gosh, she hung up on me. And I mean, didn't just hang up. The old phones, you can hear the she make sure I knew.
Who you think you are? Who you think you're talking to?
I'm holding the phone, and I looked at Catherine. I'm like, did I say something wrong? I mean, she was hot. And I said, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that. I wasn't thinking of being malicious. If he's waiting for me to get the longer. And so a few minutes later, I was on my way to my bedroom, and phone rang again. It's my uncle. He said, hey, nephew. He said, Daddy wants to. He said, every time he wakes up, he asks for you. And he just asked if we had contacted you yet. And so he said, hold on, I'm going to put the phone to his ear. And before he got the phone to him, he was asleep. And I could hear him, And I said, he said, we'll try again later. We'll call you back when he wakes up. And I'm going back to the room again. This was when we had the phones in the house, the landline. And so the phone
Real
rang
phones,
again.
That's that work as a phone.
When the phone rang that time, I stopped in my tracks. It was different from the first two rings, first time. And I just couldn't, and the phone just kept ringing. It seemed like it was like I was frozen. I turned around and walked back to the phone. I picked up the phone. I didn't even say hello. It was my uncle. He said, nephew, you there? I'm just on the phone. And he said, Daddy's gone. He said he woke up when he asked if we had talked to him. He told me to just call. He said he nodded his head, told him thank you, and he left. And I didn't say anything. I'm just holding the phone. I couldn't speak. I'm like, oh my God, that.
Your hero is gone.
And
what a well of emotion.
Yes.
Here you are. How many pounds was Junior at this time?
You remember when he came home? He might have been 5 or 6 pounds. He still had these little diapers. We still had the pamper because it looked like a little doll baby. We saved the diapers, and I was like, this is not real. These little tiny pampers. I was like, look at this little booty and the thing. But he was so tiny. He was probably about 5 or 6 pounds or so. They wanted to make sure that he could drink, and his lungs were the last thing to develop. Yeah. So his lungs were developing. He was breathing on his own. They let us bring him home.
And then your grandfather dies.
Grandfather dies same day.
And all of these emotions.
Where is my faith? Where is my faith? I'm telling you, it was really a trying time. Because when my grandfather went into hospice, I wanted to come back. I was going back and forth. And I came to talk to my pastor about it. And I said, what should I do? I said, they want me to come back. He said, this might sound a little cold. He said, if you go, what you going to do for him? Except look at him. And I'm like, okay. Wow,
that's it.
You think that might sound a little cold?
That is cold.
Then he says, let me ask you this. He said, can you afford to make 2 trips? He said, you go and see him now, which he probably don't want you to see him like that. He said, then you got to go back for a funeral. I said, look, my pastor done killed the man. And I said, I'm just like.
He was just being real.
He was being real. I can appreciate it now. But I was like, well, I should make any effort I can to go to see him while he's living and stuff. But I did. And we had made the trip. We had just come back not that long ago when we found out he was sick. He didn't tell anybody he was sick. Mm-hmm. He knew a long time before we did. And when I went to see him, this big man with this big, strong voice, and to see him so frail and not be able to even hardly speak above a whisper. He was so pale, and all his hair was just like white. And I had never seen my grandfather like that. That was hard. Yeah. That was hard for me. So it was on the decline. It happened so fast. Well, for us, fast because we didn't know.
You didn't know.
But I could agree with Bishop. Yeah, I don't want to see him. Like, I want to remember him
as the man, as granddad.
That's it. The day that we left, the last Sunday I was there, we were leaving that Monday morning. I was at the church with him. That man preached the night, Sunday night service. Everybody's gone home, and I was hanging around because I was locking up the church, and I'm like, is he ever gonna leave here? You know, he had picked up his guitar, and I'm like, he don't want to leave. I'm sleepy. I'm tired. My new wife is at home.
Right.
He played his guitar. He sang "Shine on Me."
Shine on me.
Yeah. Let the light from the lighthouse shine on me. And he said he was some kind of singer. Now he had a range too, but he sang that and played his guitar. And I sat there. He said, "Son, you can go ahead and leave. I'll be all right." And I said, "You sure you want me to leave you?" And he said, "I'll lock up." He told me to lock him in, and he'll lock up when he leaves. And I didn't feel so good about it, but I was dead tired. We were leaving to come to North Carolina. He didn't want us to go.
Right.
And so it was already that struggle. And then him playing that slow, dreadful song. I'm like, what is this? But we didn't know that was going to be his last time being in church. He preached, like I said, he preached, then he sang and played. He knew then, but he didn't tell us. And we came on, moved down here, and we communicated back and forth and stuff. But then, even then they were telling me, had you stayed, he would have done better. And you leaving zapped the life out of him. I heard all kinds of stuff. So
now
like
it's your fault that he's
guilt
dead.
On me. Yeah. But anyway, that's another story. That's not in the book.
That was good because that's not in the book, but that's good information because you were very close to your grandfather.
Yes.
And that it happened the day Junior came home. I mean, how much more can one take? Well, there was more that they had to take, okay? How long after Granddad's death did you find out about Junior's cancer?
So Junior was 13 when we got the diagnosis.
So 13 years. What 13. Was it? And I can remember,
Yeah, you were here.
I was here when he was. I mean, man, we was.
The saints were praying.
We was praying and fasting.
Fasting and praying. That was an amazing time.
Yeah.
The support from the church was phenomenal.
So, what was that announcement like? And I know, your wife is not a part of this interview, but she is in the room.
Sure.
Okay, God, what?
Yeah. After the ordeal of his birth and dealing with it, the saints were praying then. I mean, they were praying. And then the turnaround and to be faced with this is like, how do we deal with this?
But this time, you didn't blame yourselves, did you? Good.
Like this time,
because you were already worked in your holy faith.
Yes. But I'm going to tell you, we had parent moments when we heard that Junior taught us something.
Yes, he did.
He taught us something.
He did.
And to hear him regurgitate and to bring back what I taught him and what he'd been hearing me preach all these years. And it was those you said. And I'm like, this kid has been listening. My children have amazed me with just how much they've paid attention. They weren't just going to church.
That's good.
They were actually paying attention.
They say you never know how good of a parent you've been or are until your children leave. And when they leave the house, then you can say whether or not you were a good parent.
Did a good job.
You good, because sure you did a good job. They sitting in your house, eating your food and kicking out your sheets, using your water, not paying no bills. But when they get out and do what they were taught, become good citizens and pay their taxes and all of that. Then you know you've done a good job. So the nay came 2 years after.
Yes. And that was
that a fear?
Oh yeah. Well, see, the nay, I wasn't expecting the name, but she was. Because after Junior, I'm like, look, I don't want to go through this anymore. That was too much. It was a bit much, the second pregnancy. Like, okay, we won't be tempted, but somebody had another plan, another agenda.
God
God and Catherine.
God and Catherine had an agenda.
And she worked out her plan, Lord. But it was one of those things. I was afraid, and I didn't get the name Junior because then we argued about it, and she just stopped arguing. I should have known something then. When women get quiet, she stopped arguing because she said the first one should be your namesake. He should be a Junior. Mm-hmm. I said I want him to have his own identity. I didn't want to name him Junior. My father didn't have a Junior. Mm-hmm. I don't need a Junior. I want to name him David Jonathan Samu-el.
Such a Bible name.
I said that'll be.
He's gonna be like John the Baptist, receive the Holy Ghost.
David Jonathan Samu-el.
That's that was a lot of names.
His name. All Bible.
Big feet to feel.
But when I saw the papers and it had Junior, I said, "Oh, she did it anyway." I said, "She tricked me." I said, "I'm naming this one." And so when I named the name, I've always been serious about that. I think it matters what we name our children, what we're calling them. And so Danae, Kayla, Samu-el, she has my initials. But Danae is example. Kayla means wisdom. Wow. And Samu-el means the Lord has heard. And so whenever I'm talking an example of wisdom, the Lord has heard you. Ooh. And so that's where her... That's where her name came from. So I named her. She didn't fight me on that one. She said, okay, like, yeah, because you got me the first time around with Junior. But even in that.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Okay.
I didn't know that about Danae's name. Mm-hmm. That's good. You all spent 2 years with Junior. I remember that too. Mm-hmm. In this process of cancer.
Oh, you talking the cancer?
Yeah, the 2 years. Okay. The 2 years that, because we were wondering if he was going to be able to graduate from high school.
Well, the doctors told me he wouldn't.
They told you, he dying.
He wouldn't go to prom. He
none of that.
Graduate, and so it wasn't very likely that he would make it to 16. If he did, it would be a miracle. So
you all were on this special floor. Because the one doctor, you just basically told him to go to Hades. That's what he said, go to hell.
I was done with him.
You are fired.
He was cold. Well, he told us he didn't believe in God in the first place.
He didn't believe in God.
I hope you're not filling this kid's head with this faith stuff.
Right, with this faith stuff where the baby grew up in faith.
Yeah.
The fact is he's here is faith. Yeah. So that's all we know. His name is Faith. Okay. His name is Faith. We walk by faith and not by sight.
Come on.
And you send your wife out, say, I got to have a conversation with this dude. Because he's not the doctor no more. He's the dude.
The dude. Well, in that instance, as he had started talking, and I noticed my daughter, her reaction to what the doctor was saying. I'm watching this little girl, and I'm like, okay. I told my wife, honey, they went down to the cafeteria, and the doctor talked, and Junior just, I won't ever forget that moment. So this kid has the remote, he's flipping the channels, and so the doctor kind of stood, but the television was higher than doctor. So when the doctor moved in, he just, he adjusted his head to see over his head. And the doctor's talking to him, and he looked at me, he said, does he understand what we're saying? I said, yeah, I'm sure he does. And he looked at Junior, he asked him, can you mute the television? And he asked him if he understood what's going on. Junior looked at him and said, anything you want to say to me, tell my parents, and they'll explain it to me. He said, anything you want me to know, tell my parents, and they will explain it to me. That's what he said. He proceeded to lift at the remote, back up, and laughed. He laughed at the devil. He's laughing at the television. And so the doctor looked at me. I said, I have never seen him behave like that. I guess at that point he was tired of them. And the doctor looked at me. I said, I don't know. I had never seen him do that. And so the doctor's talking.
The doctor told you.
And
if you got your burial insurance.
If burial insurance, if we have prayer warriors at the church, this would be the time to reach out on that. And so he's talking to Junior. While this man is talking, Junior looked over at me and said, "Hey, Dad, what do you want me to name your first grandchild?"
Oh, wow.
And I looked at this kid, and something happened in me, because this man just told you won't go to the prom, you won't graduate high school, they pretty much enjoy all you can in life right now, because this is it. And when he said, "What do you want me to name your first grandchild?" I'm like, this kid got it before I did. I was like, what? And so the doctor, he was so disgusted. He had the little team with him. He was teaching, so students, doctors, they were all, and so they're all taking notes and stuff. And it's like, and the doctors looked at me, I'm pretty much showed them, all right, your business is. I mean, this kid done told us, all right, that's it. And so, he left shaking his head. I'm like, Junior, in that moment, and when we sat down when I was going to do this, we haven't talked about it. And so I was like, how do I talk to him about me doing this interview and see what his comfort level is and stuff. He was like, "Hey, whenever you're ready, and I'm like, I think I had a harder time with it than him. I'm like, we haven't talked about it. He was like, yeah, we can talk about it. And I'm like, so the first question I asked him, I said, Junior, what was the aha moment for you when you decided that you were not going to die and live? And he told me it was simple, that, and he took me back to when he was watching the road. He said, I just had this feeling that, and he decided that day that he was going to block out all the negative voices. We even had, when he first came home, one of his friends he hadn't seen, he's been away from school the whole school year, and one of his good friends that they've been together since, his mother and his sister wanted to come see him. They were the first to visit our home after Junior came home. And so they came to the door. We let them know, hey, hollered upstairs to Junior to let them know that they were there. And so he took his time to come home. He's still not feeling well at this point. Right. He was not finished with treatment, but he was well enough to be released from the hospital. And so he comes down and he's standing, not far from the foot of the steps. He was wearing masks and stuff then before we saw, people that did the hand sanitizer and all that before COVID coming in. And COVID. So he's standing there, and the little boy's mother is telling him, she said, I want to see you and stuff, and blah, blah, blah. She said, my sister had it at a certain age, and she died, and stuff. And Junior looked at her, and he said, why would you say that?
What?
He had a straight face. Here? And we look in, my wife's standing by close to the door. I'm on the other side.
Get out.
And I'm like, this little kid. And Junior looks at this lady and he said, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. And we looked at each other with a straight face. We looked at each other. She looked at us and she's like, you going to let him talk to me like that? And she looked at me and I was saying, yeah. And so my wife opened the door.
You're excused.
And she said, well, I guess we'll leave. And they left. I told my wife, I said, wow. I said, I don't remember ever putting nobody out of our house. I said, Junior, just put this lady out the house. I'm like, what can you say? I mean, he looked at her and said, why would you say that?
I can see him saying that,
I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
I'm going to have you to leave.
I said, he just put somebody out.
No disrespect, but you got to go.
I'm like, what can you say? I'm like, we got to practice that. I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
I'm going to have to ask you to leave and feel good about it.
And he went back upstairs. I mean, just like, wow. He was a different guy after this experience. And so just watching him through the process, even watching him, and it's not in the book either, but he had to learn how to walk again. We had videos.
Wow.
And when they told us how long the process was going to be, and the doctor, and he's at the rehab, and he told the nurse, he said, that he was going home in 21 days. And she said, Junior, she said, that sounds like, so he said 21 days. And she said, Junior, that's not possible. She said, I'll make a deal with you. She said, we're going to check to see where you are in the 21 days. She said, let's get a calendar. She put all the planner, we wrote down the date and picked the date. He said what day he was going to be released from
I think you did put that.
Oh, is it in there? Okay. What day he was going to be released from the rehab. And I kid you not, Junior went home on that 21st day. They told us it would be a minimum of 45 days before there would even be a consideration for him to be talking about leaving. He was determined that he was going to walk. And he had to develop the muscles in his legs, everything, all of it. He had been laying in the bed for months. He had lost mobility. I know this isn't in there. He had kidney failure. He couldn't move his bowels. He couldn't urinate. All it. I mean, he had the colostomy bag on. It was an experience. It was the stench of death. I don't know if you've ever smelled that before, but it was just. But God,
what a journey. That's why we named that chapter Faith, because it took faith. Not only it took faith, it took Junior's faith for y'all to catch hold.
Yes. The whole big old preacher.
Right.
Preacher's wife, first lady.
All of that. Being in the church all your life. Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief right now, because right now I don't even see it, because, and I think I posted this on 6 and 3. Knowledge is the enemy to faith.
Yes, you did.
Because we see what we see, we know what we know, and the impossible just doesn't seem past this, which is why it takes faith. And we'll be right back. Man, I hope y'all have been enjoying this interview with Pastor Samu-el, talking about his new book, Past the Pulpit, The Ultimate Test of Ministry. I know I enjoyed it. It was 2 hours long. I had to break it up into 4 parts. Stay tuned next week as we dive deeper into his new book. You can go to his website, dksministries.com, and order the book. The book is on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Exulon, Xulon. I'll put it here at the bottom of the screen. Go support my pastor, man. He is an amazing man of God, one who I trust my growth in the Lord with. So, if you have not gotten the book yet, go right now and get the book. We'll see you next week. God bless.
Thank you for listening to the Finding Peace Within podcast with Lisa L. Dalton. Now, don't forget to connect with Lisa on all her social media outlets. Just Google her name, Lisa L. Dalton, or Finding Peace Within, and you'll find her there. And remember this, a centered soul is a centered mind.